actually know what we're doing when we're recording. Okay, ooh, I don't know what that is. Insert sound. Oh dear. Yeah, I don't know what sound I would insert. A foghorn to get your attention or something? Okay. So this is a worksheet on more modeling practice. Number 2 is about a swing. We could come back and start that one. This one is about tides, and we've talked about tides a little bit. Number 4 is the one that I suggested we maybe should do together because I have a circle around it on my notes. That always makes me concerned. And it says watch the period, it needs a phase shift. The maximum number of hours of sunlight in Windsor, Ontario is 15.3 hours, which occurs on June 21st, day 172. So somebody give me an ordered pair you're thinking goes on our graph. Wait, no, I don't, they're all time. Let's do days this way and hours of sunlight. Does that sound good? And it looks to me like at some... I think we're supposed to do days because it gives us that. At day 172, it is how many hours of sunlight? 15.3. Does that seem good? And it says that is a maximum. Then there's a minimum. That is day what? 355. And that minimum occurs or happens to be 9.1 hours. Okay. So is that a full period? No. And remember, there's one on the quiz that's not a full period given. This is like what? Half a period? Okay. We could go back this way or we could go forward. Can someone figure out that difference for me so we can figure out the half a period length? 183. So if we double that, we have 366. That's okay. So our period is 366. If we go back, we're going to have negative. I don't even think we need to draw a whole thing, do we? Okay. Let's start with what? You tell me. Midline would be really good. Midline. How do we find midline? Of? Yeah, the 9.1 plus 15.3 is 26.24.4, which would be 12.2 maybe? Okay, so the midline is at 12.2. What are we going to call this mess? A fun mess? I'm thinking we could call it a cosine that's shifted to the right to 172. I mean, we could shift it back to the left, but it doesn't matter, so we just want an equation. So cosine right 172 would mean what? Where's that going to go? It says write an equation determining hours of sunlight after T days. So right 172 would be minus 172. I haven't remembered to use T, which we know never happens. Usually I use X, even though it says to use T. And we have cosine. Can we put the B in yet? The B value is the period, 2 pi over the period. So it's 2 pi over what? We already figured the period is, what's the period, guys? 366. Which reduces to pi over 183. Lovely. I'm not going to be able to write that in here because I didn't leave enough room. It almost looks like a 183. The midline was at 12.2, which I never did label. Can anybody figure out the amplitude then? 3.1, is that right? It adds 3.1 here or to here to get to the midline. Okay, I think we're ready to try to graph this so that then we can make a prediction going backwards to day 91. Even my sweater's working against me today. Okay. Strangling me. 3.1 cosine pi over 188, is that what we said? 183, thank you. And then another parenthesis, x minus 172. Close, plus 12.2. I don't know how I remembered all that. Okay. I need to be in radians, which I am. I need a window that makes sense. I do need to go out a long ways, don't I? Like, if you did 400, okay, like there's 365 days in a year, that seems okay. And 0 to like 16 or 17 hours of daylight would be plenty. Does that seem okay? Okay, so what did we know again? Trace to what day? 172. I have 15.3, and then what's the min? Was on what day? 355. At 9.1, that seems okay. And then what's the day they want us to go? April what day? 91. I have 12.8 hours of daylight. Now, you could actually do that question in the home screen without graphing it. You could type the 91 right in here for T, but then you can't check that it's working, right? I totally like to graph it because then I can check if it's doing what I think it's supposed to be doing. All right. Good? Questions? Feel comfortable? Okay. Why don't you work on writing the equation for number 5, because then there's a couple weird questions that I circled at the end of that question. All right, did anybody get anywhere on the start of this one? Volume person's only assigned a time. This seems like the min and max numbers. Did anybody get that far? And that one breath takes 4 seconds. That seems like a period. Assume her lungs are empty, which is 22 milliliters to start. Oh, that makes it interesting. I don't think we necessarily need a phase shift then, do we? So she takes a breath. She empties it back out, and what point in time is that? 4 seconds. It says to sketch a graph for the first 12 seconds, so what should happen? Ooh, dear, mine's really bad. Well, that was fun. Okay. Tell me something you know.
The midpoints in 2,000.
This is a difference of 6. I don't think the middle is 26, is it? If you add them together, don't you get 5,000? So the middle is 2,500? Did anybody else get that? Okay. So what does that make the amplitude? 300, 300 above and below. Okay. Anybody want to start the equation with anything? Oh, why are we doing a negative? If we call it an upside down cosine, we won't need a phase shift. Anybody have a question about that? Because it goes minimum to minimum. Nice. So we don't need a phase shift. Once again, I left no room for the b value. But if the period is 4 seconds, then the b is just 2 pi over 4 or pi over 2. Can I squeeze that in there? Midline, 2,500. Okay, I got a question for you. If someone mixed up the midline and the amplitude, what would that mean in terms of this application question? Okay.
So it would go really far down, really far up.
They would have negative lung
Okay.
capacity.
Well,
Not even speaking about the lungs, just like
yeah.
the amplitude would be a lot bigger, so that
They would create
Yeah.
a vacuum.
On this one, it's pretty obvious which is which, I hope, but, okay. Do we have to do anything else? I don't think we do we? Except now it says, describe how the graph and equation would change if she breathed more rapidly.
Would have a shorter period.
Shorter period. So it would change what in the equation? Yeah, the b value. Bigger breaths? Okay. Yes. On the graph, like the max would be bigger, you think?
The max and minimum.
Yeah.
You can't get negative capacity.
And in the equation, that would change then the amplitude, right? And the midline? Assuming still that empty is 2,200 milliliter lung space, if she took a bigger breath, it would, honestly, it might change the amount of time. I don't know, but all right, I'm comfortable. So you are to finish this worksheet as part of the homework check. Is there something more you want to talk about? The only one, I think part number 1 or number 3, both have like where you have to put an equation in. What do you want to try, 1 or 3? 1? Okay. I probably shouldn't do it on the video, but I will. We won't tell anybody it's on the video, right? That there's all these on here. Affairs, well, we hope you feel better, Adriana. You always hope you feel better if you watch the video. A Ferris wheel has a radius of 10. Okay, so I'm going to draw it over here. That means 10 up, 10 down from the middle, right? Gets on the ride at a height of 2. So what's their minimum and maximum height? The 2, and if it's 2, oh, it's not 12. The maximum height, because this is 10 and this is 10, so up here would be 22. Yes, 12 would be the midline. Is that on my, what is that cursor there? Okay, there's a little line there. I don't know what it's doing there. It's confusing me. The wheel completes a rotation every 20 seconds. Oh, wait a minute. Gets on at the bottom. Nice. What does that mean? We can do a cosine, negative cosine, and completes a revolution in 20 seconds. Sketch a graph for 2 revolutions. Okay, we can do that. So what would be this point out here at the end? We'd be back at 40, 2. All right, good enough for me. Determine an equation. Okay, where'd you get 10 again? Just so we're not confusing anybody. This was at 12, right? The midline. And then it went 10 up and 10 down. Okay. Negative 10 cosine what? 2 pi over 20 would be pi over 10. We don't need a phase shift. You can put extra parentheses in there, but, and I think I lied. Find the height of the rider 6 seconds. Oh, 6 seconds after passing the top, though. That's kind of interesting. Can we figure this out? Where would they hit the top at? So 6 seconds after that, oh, I can't, would be at 16. T equals 16. Okay. Pi over what? 10? Plus 12? Okay. And it said 2, so that was what, 40 seconds? 40 seconds? And how high did our Ferris wheel go? So like 25 here should work. Okay, and trace 10. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, that was right, though. 10 seconds, because then 20 seconds was the full thing. 20 seconds. Yeah, okay, we're good. I thought I messed up. And 16 is where we decided, it said 6 seconds after he reaches the top. Is that right? So what, he's at 8.9. Was this meters? That's interesting. Yes. I would have assumed that, but on a quiz, you could certainly ask me that question if it was confusing. I think on the quiz I would have just said, find his height at 16 seconds. We made it pretty straightforward.
Wouldn't it still be the same height if you did like
Oh,
36?
you are good. Yes, if you made the second time. Oh, I didn't think about that. Destiny's so much smarter than me. If you went the second time after he'd been up to the top and back down, the height would still be the same, right? 6 seconds after that. So that would be at 36 seconds. Genius. Give you so much credit on the video, right? All right. Yes. This is the one where I think you have to put a Y in. Oh, let's do it. No one will watch the video anyway, right? The tides on the coast of Gondor vary from 2 meters below sea level. Yeah, I think it's made up. I don't know. -2. Midnight. Okay, we'll figure that out in a minute. To 6 above sea level. So to +6. And it takes 6 hours to go from low to high tide. Oh my goodness. Low to. Okay, if we made 0 midnight, so like hour 0 of the day, does that make sense? So what can we do then? It takes 6 hours to go from low to high. Oh, I can't. And where is it at midnight? So it's low, and then it's high, 6 hours later, which is actually 6 a.m., right? And then what? Is that a period? So then we'd have noon, which would be 12. And then back at high at 6 p.m., which would be hour 18 in military time, right? And then it says to graph it out to 24, so hour 24 would be back at midnight the next night. Okay, my graph is clearly perfect. Determine an equation for the tide after T hours. Well, and we're going to be using T equals hours since midnight. How's that sound? Okay. Brendan, you got an equation yet? Got anything for the equation? What shape do you want to call it? We could actually call it a sine if we started right there, right? Because that shape would be sine to there. But then we got to calculate those hours. If we want to just use the fact that it starts at a min to a min, what shape is that? That's a negative cosine. And then we won't need a phase shift. Is that okay, Brandon? Midline? Jacob, did you calculate the midline yet? +2, which would make the amplitude 4 below and 4 above. That seems okay. So where does the 2 go, guys? This is the midline, and that goes at the end. And the amplitude, which is 4, goes at the front. But we decided to call it a negative cosine. Okay. What's the period? The period is 12 hours. So B is 2 pi over 12 or pi over 6. Do we need a phase shift? How are we going to figure out when are the tides 4 meters above sea level? This is the one I was worried about. How could we do that?
The line through the thing.
Oh, that's a good idea.
We can just do the cheaty way. We can
Okay.
do the cheaty way, just do the line straight through the entire graph. Is that what it is?
That's what I was thinking, because it says 4 meters above, which is actually up here, right? If I can get that purple to work. 4 meters above is up here somewhere. So I'm not sure what you said about every 4 hours. Maybe it is 4 hours. This is 3, this is 4. You can check that it's 4. Okay. So look.
It's like 4, 4, and 8. So we occur in 4 hours and then 8 hour mark.
Okay. Right. What was it, guys? Negative?
Negative 4 cosine.
Pi over
6. X.
plus 2. So it did go a little, time, probably 24 hours is enough. But height, it was a little negative, so we need like -5 to 10. It didn't go up that high, did it? Okay. Now, Aislinn says we should just go to the table. Oh, it does clearly say it's 4 hours at 4. What would this 4 be? What time is this? 4 a.m. And then No. 8 a.m. And then we could scroll down. And 16, which would be 4 p.m. Anybody good with their military time? And 20? Okay, so the table was actually really nice for that. Thank you, Aislinn. That was a great idea. So what did we decide? Is that us? Oh, he's got to leave early. That's why I'm confused. 4 a.m. You can take your stuff, yeah. What was it?
16
8 a.m. 16 minus 12 would be 4 p.m. And 20 minus 12 would be 8 p.m. Which was actually hours after midnight. We're at 4, 8, 16, and 20, if anybody put that down.
And that's why you guys asked about 4 minutes, because the table was very easy.
Nice. I thought we had to graph and find intersection points, but it was easier than that. I mean, yeah, we could have done it either way, but.
And then we could, and it's usually going to be a pattern of the second.
Yep. Well, it should repeat. The first one should repeat period later, right? All right. Do we need to do one off the last question, since we're basically doing everything here? You want to pick one of these? You're supposed to put all this information in. Let's do the last one. Cosine function with an amplitude of 5. Where's that go? Very front. And then it says cosine. A period of pi. So b would be 2 pi over pi, which would be 2. A phase shift of this, I assume this means left. So when we put it in, it would be plus. It's usually the opposite. That's not very clear. I wrote left on my paper. And a vertical translation of 1. By the way, that would be equivalent. Oh my goodness. Equivalent. If we distributed that, 2x plus 2 pi over 2 would be pi. So an answer might look like that, but we have been using them factored form only, right? You don't have to write that down, but all right. I feel like we're good.